"Sir, I'm not allowed to eat," said the little alien girl. The human single dad gave her his dinner. Humans, aliens of every shape and size, and robots moved through the wide corridors in a steady flow. The smell of exotic foods drifted through the air, a mix of spices that tickled the nose and reminded travelers that this was a place where worlds met. Captain Elia's rider adjusted his worn jacket and glanced at the small screen in his hand. His cargo shipment was delayed, as usual, and his 10-year-old daughter, Mina, was restless beside him. She kicked her legs gently, eyes darting to every display of holographic advertisements and vendors selling goods from across the galaxy. Elias leaned down and whispered, "Patience, Mina. They'll call our shipment soon. Besides, look around, you never see this many species together on Earth." Mina's eyes widened. "But Dad, they're all so different. That one has 3 eyes and that one looks like a walking flower. How do they even eat?" Elias smiled, watching his daughter's amazement. Humans were still a curiosity in many parts of the galaxy. Some aliens admired human adaptability, while others thought them reckless and unpredictable. Elias liked it that humans were underestimated. It made life interesting. "Different or not, they all live and survive," he said, ruffling her hair. "Humans have to be smart about things. And you're learning fast, little one." Mina giggled and turned to watch a group of insected traders negotiating over a glowing crystal. "I wish I could talk to them," she said, her voice soft and curious. Elias chuckled. "One day you will, for now just observe. That's half the skill in understanding the galaxy." As they walked toward a bench near the food court, Elias noticed something unusual. A small figure sat alone, hunched over, with large, luminous eyes staring at the crowd but avoiding contact. The being was tiny, barely taller than Mina herself, with pale green skin and delicate limbs. Its clothes were simple, plain, and worn, as though the little alien girl had been traveling for days without proper care. Elias felt a tug at his chest. He had a habit of noticing those who didn't belong, the overlooked, the lonely. Something about this little girl seemed fragile, vulnerable, hungry. He crouched slightly to be at her level. "Hey there, are you lost?" he asked gently. The girl shook her head, but Elias noticed how her shoulders slumped, the way her hands fidgeted nervously. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it. Mina, curious as ever, stepped forward. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. The girl's large eyes blinked rapidly. Then she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper, "Sir, I'm not allowed to eat." Elias froze for a moment, caught off guard. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was heavy. "Not allowed to eat?" he asked. The girl nodded, her small head bobbing. "I can't, I have rules." Elias' mind raced. Rules? What kind of rules would prevent a child from eating? His heart ached at the thought of anyone, especially a child, being denied food. He looked at Mina, who was frowning in concern. "Dad, should we help her?" Elias shook his head slightly. "We need to understand first." He knelt closer, speaking softly. "Listen, I don't want to cause trouble, I just want to make sure you're okay. Can you tell me your name?" "Leary," she said cautiously. "Leary, that's a beautiful name," Elias said. "I'm Elias and this is my daughter, Mina." "Leary, why can't you eat?" Leary looked down at her hands. Her skin shimmered slightly under the artificial lights of the spaceport, a subtle glow that reminded Elias that not all beings were like humans. "It's my people. Children can't eat outside the proper meals. If we do, we displease them." Elias felt a pang of worry. He didn't know much about alien cultures, but he did know that rules like these were often strict and unforgiving. Still, his human instinct to protect, to nurture, was stronger than fear of offending anyone. He glanced at Mina, who had already moved closer, curious and concerned. Leary shifted uneasily. I'm hungry," she admitted quietly, barely above a whisper. Elias looked around. The food court was busy, with vendors shouting out offers for spicy noodles, roasted meats, and steaming beverages. He could feel the warmth of the smells, the vibrant energy around him. And yet here was a child, trembling slightly, denying herself sustenance out of fear. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small packet of energy bars. "Here," he said, holding it out gently. "It's just food, you don't have to hide." Leary's eyes widened and she took a step back. "No, I can't, I can't." Elias knelt further, keeping his voice soft and steady. "I understand your rules, but I also understand hunger, and I know what it feels like to be a child who needs care. I promise I won't get you in trouble. I just want you to be safe." Leary's eyes flickered between the packet of food and Elia's face. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she shook her head, defeated. I can't." Elias sighed, feeling a mix of frustration and determination. He wasn't going to give up. "All right," he said. "Then let's find a safe place for you to rest. You look tired. Your people might be strict, but no rule is worth you collapsing from hunger." Leary hesitated, then nodded slightly. She allowed Elias to take her hand and they walked toward a quieter corner of the food court, away from the crowds and prying eyes. Elias kept his hand near hers, not to control but to offer reassurance. Mina followed closely, whispering to her father, "Dad, she's so tiny. She must have been alone for a long time." Elias nodded, his mind racing with questions about Leary's journey and the strict society that governed her life. He glanced at the crowded spaceport around them, realizing how different every species' rules could be, yet how similar the struggles could feel. Hunger, fear, loneliness, these were universal. They found a small alcove near a seating area, shielded from the hustle and bustle. Leary sank onto the bench, her legs dangling, while Elias crouched beside her. He offered her the energy bar again, speaking softly. "You don't have to eat if you're afraid, but just hold it for now. When you feel ready, I'll be here." Leary stared at the packet, trembling slightly. She didn't take it, but she didn't push it away either. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the distant hum of cargo transports and the chatter of travelers. Elias looked at her closely. "Do you miss your family?" he asked gently. Leary's large eyes filled with a quiet sadness. I don't have them here. I travel alone sometimes." Elias' heart ached. A child traveling alone in a crowded spaceport, afraid to eat, following rules she didn't even fully understand. Humanity had taught him to fight for what was right, to protect the weak and the vulnerable, and here was an opportunity to do just that. He shifted slightly and offered her a warm smile. "Well, you have me now, and my daughter. We'll make sure you're safe, Leary. You don't have to be alone." Mina, sensing the weight of the moment, slid closer and held out her hand. "Hi, Leary, I'm Mina. You can sit with me if you want. I have stories about my school on Earth, and I promise they're really funny." Leary's lips curved into the faintest smile, a tiny spark of relief shining through her tired expression. For the first time since Elias had noticed her, she felt a little less alone. Elias looked down at the energy bar again. He knew that feeding her might be against her strict rules, but he also knew something else. Compassion often required courage. Sometimes, breaking a small rule to help someone in need was the right thing to do. He tore the energy bar into small pieces, placing a fragment in front of Leary, not pushing, not insisting, just an offering, a gesture of trust. "Whenever you're ready," he said softly, "take it. No one will be angry with you here." Leary's eyes flickered down at the food. She hesitated, then reached out with one delicate hand and took a tiny piece. Slowly she chewed, her eyes wide as if tasting food for the first time in days or maybe weeks. Elias watched closely, relief washing over him. She was safe, she was eating, and she was alive. Mina clapped her hands softly. "See, it's not so bad, isn't it good?" Leary nodded slowly, a quiet hum of approval escaping her. It wasn't much, but it was enough. For Elias, it was everything. Humanity's strength, he realized, wasn't just in technology, ships, or battle. It was in small acts like this, protecting, nurturing, understanding, and sharing. And in that busy spaceport, amidst the chaos and color of 1,000 species, A human single dad had given a small alien girl something she had never had before. A moment of safety, kindness, and trust. Elias leaned back, feeling the weight of the day ease slightly. He didn't know what challenges the future held, but he knew one thing. Humanity, at its best, could cross galaxies, cross cultures, and touch hearts. And in that moment, Leary's small, trembling hand in his own was proof of it. The interstellar crowd bustled around them. But for Elias, Mina, and Leary, the world had shrunk to that quiet alcove, a place where understanding, kindness, and courage had created a new beginning. And somewhere deep in Elias' chest, he knew that this was only the start. The small alcove where Elias, Mina, and Leary sat felt like a quiet island in the middle of the bustling spaceport. While the crowds moved around them, the three of them shared a rare moment of peace. Leary chewed slowly on the energy bar piece Elias had given her, her luminous eyes shifting nervously as she looked at the humans around her. "Is it good?" Mina asked softly, leaning closer. Leary nodded, though her expression remained cautious. "It tastes different," she said. "I've never eaten like this before." Elias smiled gently. "Different can be good. Sometimes it takes time to notice." For a few moments, silence settled, broken only by the distant hum of hovercrafts and chatter of travelers. Elias observed Leary carefully. She seemed smaller than she should be, almost frail, and her movements were careful, as if she was always on guard. It was clear that her life had been one of strict rules and discipline. "Leary," Elias said after a while, "can you tell me why your people have rules about eating?" Leary hesitated, her small fingers twisting together. It is how we learn. Only at certain times, only in certain ways, eating is disciplined. If a child eats when they are not allowed, they are punished." Elias frowned, feeling a chill run through him. The idea of punishing a child for hunger was hard to comprehend, yet he reminded himself to be patient. He did not understand Leary's culture fully, and rushing would only make her more afraid. "You punished," Mina whispered, her big eyes round with concern. Leary shook her head quickly. "Not here, not now, but if I returned, they would know." She looked down, chewing the piece of food slowly. "I do not want them to know." Elias reached over and rested a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then don't worry about that now. You're safe with us and you can eat safely." Leary looked at him, her large eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and fear. For the first time, Elias realized just how lonely she must feel, traveling in a galaxy filled with rules she could not fully explain, relying only on herself. "Why are you alone, Leary?" Elias asked carefully. My family is far," she said, voice trembling slightly. "I travel alone sometimes. It is normal for my kind." Elias' heart ached. He could not imagine sending Mina alone across a busy spaceport like Nova Haven. His human instincts flared: protect, nurture, help. "You may be far from your family, Leary," he said gently, "but you have us now. You don't have to be alone anymore. We can help you." Leary blinked at him, unsure if she could trust his words. Elias knew trust was delicate, especially for someone who had followed strict rules their whole life. He needed to prove that humans, unlike her own people, could be kind without expecting anything in return. "Would you like to tell me more about your rules?" Elias asked. "I want to understand. Maybe then we can figure out a safe way for you to eat." Leary hesitated. She had never spoken so openly about her life. Her people valued obedience above all else, and speaking too much to outsiders was frowned upon. Yet something in Elias' tone, his gentle patience, made her feel safe enough to continue. "My people," she said slowly, "believe the body must be trained. Children are not allowed to eat outside the meals that are given. If we do, the elders become angry. They say it is disrespectful, dangerous. We must learn control." Elias nodded, absorbing the information. He did not understand all the cultural reasons behind it, but he could see the effect: the fear, the restriction, the loneliness. Still, he knew that compassion and creativity could find a solution. Humans had a way of thinking around problems, of turning challenges into opportunities. "All right, Leary," Elias said carefully. "Let's try this. We will follow your rules as much as we can, but we will also make sure you are safe and fed. You don't have to break your people's rules completely. We'll find a way to make both work." Leary's eyes widened. Can that be done?" Elias smiled. "I think so. Humans are good at figuring things out. We don't always have the right answers at first, but we try and we try until it works." Mina reached over and held Leary's small hand. "I can help too," she said. "I'll make sure you have snacks. We can share stories while we eat. It'll be like a secret mission." Leary looked down at Mina's hand, then back at Elia's. Slowly, a tiny smile appeared. "A secret mission?" she asked. "Yes," Elias said, grinning. "A secret mission to keep you safe and happy. You will be our special guest." For the first time, Leary relaxed slightly. The tension in her shoulders eased, and she sat more comfortably. Elias felt a surge of relief. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. Humanity had a way of bridging divides, even between species with vastly different customs. As they talked, Elias noticed a group of officials in sharp uniforms moving through the spaceport, scanning the crowds with keen eyes. Leary stiffened immediately. "They are elders," she whispered. "They check on children if they see me trouble." Elia's protective instincts flared. He had to act carefully. "We'll stay here for now," he said quietly. "No sudden movements, you're safe." The group of elders passed by without noticing them, but the tension remained. Leary's hand shook slightly in Elias's, and Mina squeezed it gently to comfort her. "You're very brave," Elias said softly. "Not many would keep going when rules are so strict. I admire that." Leary's large eyes widened. "Brave?" she whispered. "Yes," Elias said firmly. "Brave isn't just about fighting or exploring. Sometimes it's about surviving, making choices when it's hard, and trusting the right people." Leary thought about this. She had never considered that eating or asking for help could be a brave act. Her people taught obedience, not courage. Elias' words planted a seed, a new idea that perhaps strength could come from kindness, not just rules. The trio sat quietly for a while, sharing small pieces of food Elias had managed to gather from his bag and the spaceport vendors. Leary tasted things she had never seen before: spiced bread, sweet fruit, and a warm, thick drink that smelled like cinnamon. Each bite was cautious, but her eyes sparkled with curiosity and delight. Elias watched carefully, ensuring she did not eat too fast, that she remained comfortable. His own hunger had disappeared. For him, this moment was more satisfying than any meal, seeing a child from another world safe, fed, and beginning to trust humans. Mina, too, was thrilled. She whispered stories of Earth, of schools, pets, and games. Leary listened, her fear slowly melting as she absorbed tales of a human life so different from her own. For the first time, she felt a connection, a bridge between her strict world and the unpredictability of humans. Hours passed, and the spaceport began to quiet as evening approached. Elias knew they could not stay in the food court forever. They needed a safe place for the night, somewhere Leary could rest without fear. "I think it's time we find somewhere safe for you," Elias said gently. "Somewhere quiet where you can sleep and not worry about rules for now." Leary hesitated. "Safe place?" "Yes," Elias said firmly. "We'll make it comfortable. You'll have a bed and food whenever you need. No one will be angry with you here. You can rest." Leary looked between Elias and Mina, unsure, but the trust she had begun to feel held her in place. Slowly, she nodded. Elias led them through the spaceport, keeping to quiet corridors and avoiding the main crowds. Along the way, he asked Leary about her people, her home, and her journey. Each answer gave him insight into her world and helped him think of ways to help her survive safely without breaking her cultural rules entirely. Eventually, they reached a small inn on the edge of the spaceport, a place Elias had used before for short stays. The owner, A friendly human with a soft spot for travelers allowed Elias to rent a modest room. The three of them stepped inside and Leary's eyes widened at the cozy space. "It is warm," she whispered. "Yes," Elias said, smiling, "and safe. You can rest here tonight." He helped Leary settle onto the bed, offering another small snack. She ate slowly, her trust growing. Mina tucked herself in beside her, sharing stories and laughter that echoed softly through the room. Elias watched them, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. Humanity's strength, he realized, was not just in technology or courage in battle. It was in patience, care, and the ability to reach across worlds with kindness. As night fell over Nova Haven, the three slept, their small room a haven from the strict rules and dangers of the galaxy outside. For Leary, it was the first night she had felt truly safe. For Elias and Mina, it was a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories came not from conquest or power but from simple acts of empathy. In the quiet, Elias whispered to himself, "We'll find a way to help her. Together, we'll make sure she thrives." And somewhere deep inside, Leary dreamed not of rules and punishment, but of kindness, warmth, and the strange, wonderful world of humans who could care so deeply for another being, even one from a galaxy far away. The morning light spilled through the small inn's window, casting a soft glow across the room where Elias, Mina, and Leary slept. The galaxy outside was waking up, ships gliding across the sky, distant planets reflecting sunlight, and the low hum of Nova Haven's spaceport filling the air. For Leary, it was the first morning she had awoken without fear of punishment, without the constant tension of strict rules pressing on her tiny shoulders. Elias was the first to rise, careful not to wake the two children. He walked to the window and looked out, his mind already racing with plans. Leary's situation was more complicated than he had first imagined. Her people were disciplined and strict, and any misstep could bring consequences. Yet, he was determined. Humanity, he reminded himself, had a way of finding solutions where others saw problems. Compassion, ingenuity, and courage, these were tools as powerful as any technology. He returned to the bed and gently shook Mina awake. "Time to get up," he whispered. "We have a busy day ahead." Mina opened her eyes, blinking sleepily. "Dad, is Leary awake?" Elias smiled. "Not yet, but soon. We need to help her today. We have to find a way for her to be safe while following her rules." Leary stirred, her large eyes opening slowly. She blinked at Elias and Mina, her expression cautious but softer than yesterday. The fear had not completely left her, but trust was growing, fragile and precious. "Good morning, Leary," Elias said gently. "Did you sleep well?" I think so," Leary replied quietly, stretching her small arms. "It is comfortable here." Elias nodded. "That's because you're safe, and safe is important." Mina handed Leary a small cup of warm drink Elias had brought from the food court. "Try this," she said. "It tastes sweet and it's safe." Leary sipped it slowly, savoring the warmth. A small smile appeared on her face, something Elias had not seen before. For him, it was a victory. Small, yes, but meaningful. A child beginning to trust, to feel at home even for a moment, was proof of humanity's strength. After breakfast, Elias knew they could not stay in the inn forever. Leary needed a more permanent solution, or at least a plan that would keep her safe from the scrutiny of her elders. He gathered the two children and stepped out into the bustling spaceport. "We need to think carefully today," Elias said quietly. "Leary, do you remember the elders you mentioned? We need to avoid them until we find a plan." Leary nodded, her large eyes serious. "They will search for me," she said. "If they see me, I must return. Rules are strong." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we will be careful, but you are not alone anymore. We will protect you." As they moved through the spaceport, Elias observed the different species around them. Some were tall, some short, some with wings, others with multiple limbs, colors of skin and patterns unlike anything on Earth. Yet among the diversity, Elias saw the common thread: intelligence, curiosity, and survival. Humans had always thrived in diversity, adapting and learning, and he believed that adaptability would help them now. They passed by a vendor selling small mechanical toys, spinning devices that whirred and glowed. Mina's eyes lit up, and she tugged Elias toward the stall. Leary followed hesitantly, curious but cautious. "These are called spin wheels," Elias explained. "They're simple toys but fun. Do you want to try one?" Leary hesitated, then nodded. Elias purchased a small, glowing wheel and handed it to her. She held it carefully, turning it in her hands, watching the light dance across its surface. For the first time, Elias noticed something remarkable. Her mind was sharp, observant, curious. Despite her fear and strict upbringing, she was intelligent, quick, and alert. Humanity valued these traits, and Elias recognized that they could be the key to helping her navigate her complex world. As they continued walking, Elias' instincts alerted him to movement in the crowd. A group of uniformed figures the elders Leary had warned him about moved through the corridor, scanning the travelers with precise, watchful eyes. Leary stiffened immediately, gripping Elias' hand tightly. "They are close," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Stay calm. Keep close to me. We will move quietly." He led them through a series of side corridors, using his knowledge of the spaceport to avoid the main paths. The elders passed by, oblivious to the three humans weaving through the shadows. Leary's tension eased slightly once the danger had passed, but Elias knew it would not be long before they faced another challenge. "Your rules are very strict," Elias said quietly once they were safe. "But I think we can use your strengths to our advantage. You are smart, observant, and cautious. Those traits will help us stay safe and find a solution." Leary looked at him, her eyes wide. "Use my strengths?" "Yes," Elias said. "Your people train you to follow rules. That makes you careful, but you also have your own mind. We can use that to find a way to be safe while respecting your rules." She considered this, her fingers twisting together. It was a new idea, using her obedience and intelligence to navigate her world in a way she had never thought possible. Elias had planted a seed, a spark of confidence and ingenuity. They found a quiet corner near the transport docks, where cargo ships were being loaded and unloaded. Elias knelt beside Leary and Mina, speaking softly. "We need to come up with a plan. First, we need to understand your rules completely. Tell me everything you know about what is allowed and what is forbidden." Leary hesitated, then began explaining. "Children must eat only at meal times. We cannot accept food from strangers. We cannot speak freely about certain things. Elders monitor behavior. If we break rules, there are consequences." Elias listened carefully, taking in every detail. He asked questions, clarified points, and began to sketch out a plan in his mind. The galaxy was full of rules, and humans had a way of finding clever solutions without causing harm. This would require patience, creativity, and understanding, human qualities he knew well. "All right," Elias said finally. "Here's what we will do. We will make sure you have food when you need it, in a way that doesn't break your rules. We will find a safe place for you to rest and hide from the elders. And we will use your intelligence and observation skills to navigate the spaceport safely." Leary's eyes shone with a mix of hope and fear. It can work." "Yes," Elias said firmly. "We just have to be smart and careful. And remember, you are not alone. You have me and Mina." The three of them began putting the plan into action. Elias found a quiet storage area behind one of the cargo terminals, a place that was seldom visited. He negotiated with a friendly worker to allow them to use the space for short periods. It was small, but safe, hidden from the public and the elders. Leary moved cautiously into the space, exploring it with wide eyes. "It is hidden," she whispered. "Yes," Elias said, smiling. "Safe places are important. You can rest here, eat, and regain your strength without fear." Over the next few hours, Elias and Mina taught Leary simple ways to stay safe. They practiced moving quietly, observing patterns, and using her natural alertness to detect potential danger. Leary absorbed everything quickly, her mind sharp and capable. Humanity had always thrived by learning, adapting, and using intelligence, and she was proving to be no exception. By midday, Leary had eaten small meals safely, hidden from prying eyes. She laughed softly with Mina, a sound Elias had not heard from her before. It was music to his ears, proof that children, even from other worlds, could find joy when treated with care and respect. But Elias knew the real challenge was still ahead. The elders would not stop searching, and the strict rules of Leary's people could catch up with them at any moment. He needed a long-term solution, something that would allow her to live safely while respecting her culture. As they rested in their hidden space, Elias shared stories of humans who had faced challenges with courage and ingenuity. He told Leary about explorers, inventors, and ordinary people who had solved problems creatively, using their minds rather than force. Leary listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. She began to understand that bravery was not just about following rules. It was about thinking, observing, and choosing wisely. By evening, Elias felt a quiet sense of pride. Leary had begun to trust them to learn and to use her abilities in new ways. Humanity's strength, he realized, was not just in technology or courage. It was in kindness, patience, and the ability to teach and protect. He watched her carefully, noting her resilience, intelligence, and growing confidence. The elders might be strict and the rules might be harsh, but with guidance, Leary could navigate her world successfully. She could learn to be brave in her own way, to use her gifts wisely, and to trust in the goodness of others. As night fell over Nova Haven, the three returned to the inn. Leary was quieter than usual, thoughtful, and reflective. Elias knew she was processing everything she had learned, everything she had experienced. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we will continue practicing. We will make sure you are safe, and we will find a way for you to live without fear." Leary nodded, her small hand in his. "Thank you," she whispered. Elias smiled. "No, Leary, thank you. You are teaching me, too, about courage, trust, and what it means to protect someone. Humanity is strong, but it is also kind, and kindness can be the greatest strength of all." Mina yawned, snuggling beside Leary. "Good night, Leary," she murmured. "Good night," Leary replied softly. Elias looked at the two children, feeling a warmth in his chest. The galaxy was vast and often dangerous, but moments like these reminded him why humans could thrive anywhere. Strength was not just in power. It was in compassion, patience, and the willingness to help those in need. For Leary, a child from a strict alien culture, it was the first time she had felt safe, cared for, and valued for who she was. For Elias and Mina, it was a reminder that the heart of humanity was not measured in battles fought, but in lives touched, trust earned, and kindness shared. And as the stars twinkled outside the window, Elias knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning of their journey. Challenges lay ahead, rules would need careful navigation, and the elders might still appear. But together, they could face anything. In the quiet of the inn, Leary drifted to sleep, dreaming not of rules and punishment, but of safety, kindness, and the strange, wonderful humans who had shown her that courage could take many forms. The next morning, Nova Haven's spaceport buzzed with the usual energy. Cargo ships humming as they prepared for departure, merchants calling out the day's specials, and travelers hurrying to catch their connections. Elias, Mina, and Leary had spent a quiet night in the inn, but the challenges of the day ahead were clear. The elders who oversaw Leary's kind would not stop looking for her, and Elias knew it was only a matter of time before they appeared. Elias crouched beside Leary as she finished her small breakfast. "We need to be careful today," he said softly. "The elders might be searching for you, but don't worry, we have a plan." Leary nodded, gripping the small toy spinwheel Elias had given her the day before. Plan, she whispered. Yes, Elias said. We will move quietly. We will use your intelligence and observation skills to stay ahead. And if the elders appear, we will find a way to explain things so you stay safe. Mina leaned over and whispered to Leary, we've practiced a lot. You're really smart. You can do this. Leary's eyes reflected a mix of fear and determination. Elias admired her courage. Though she was small, her mind was sharp and her senses quick. Humanity's strength, he realized, was not just in power or tools, but in the ability to think, to adapt, and to help others. Leary was learning that strength. They left the inn quietly, sticking to the side corridors of the spaceport. Elias had memorized the paths and hidden areas from previous shipments and maintenance trips. He moved with careful steps, keeping Leary and Mina close. As they approached a less crowded section near the cargo docks, Elias whispered, "We'll pause here and observe. You need to see how the elders move, how they search, so you can stay safe." Leary crouched slightly, her small body tense. Elias handed her a pair of binocular-like devices used for observing distant cargo operations. "Use these," he said. "Look carefully. Notice patterns." Leary peered through the device, her large eyes scanning the area. She saw a group of elder figures moving among the crowd, their gaze sweeping systematically. Elias explained their behavior. They moved in pairs, communicated silently, and checked each person carefully. "You see them?" Elias whispered. "Notice how they scan the crowds. They rarely separate and they rely on observation more than force. That's their strength." Leary nodded. "I understand," she said quietly. "They watch." "Exactly," Elias said. "Now we use that knowledge. We will move when they are distracted and stay hidden when they are close. You are clever, Leary. Use your mind, your senses. That is your strength." Hours passed as they moved carefully through the cargo area. Elias and Mina guided Leary, pointing out safe spots to hide and paths to take. Leary's confidence grew with each successful maneuver. She began noticing details on her own. A worker who always stopped to check a cargo panel, a ship that would start its engines at a predictable time. Each observation gave them a small advantage. Elias smiled quietly to himself. Humanity thrived on observation, problem-solving, and creativity, and now Leary was learning to use those same tools. Around midday, they paused near a quiet corner of the spaceport. Elias crouched beside Leary. "Good work so far," he said. "But the elders might start changing their patterns. We need a long-term solution. We need a place where you can rest safely and eat without fear." Leary frowned slightly. "Long-term, safe place." "Yes," Elias said. "We will find one. Somewhere quiet, hidden, but close enough that we can help you if needed. You will not be alone." They moved toward a storage facility at the edge of the spaceport. Elias had used it before. It was empty, secure, and rarely visited. He negotiated briefly with a human worker to allow Leary to use a small section. The worker agreed, unaware of the child's background, simply trusting Elias. "This is it," Elias said as they stepped inside. "You can rest here, eat, and prepare. No one will disturb you." Leary's eyes widened. "Hidden safe," she whispered, turning slowly to take in the small room. "Yes," Elias said, smiling. "This will be our base. Now we practice, observe, and plan for the elders' arrival." They spent the afternoon rehearsing movement patterns, hiding strategies, and observation techniques. Elias emphasized that thinking ahead and staying calm were just as important as running or hiding. Leary absorbed the lessons quickly, her natural intelligence shining through. As the sun began to set, the sound of ships and engines lessened and the spaceport grew quieter. But Elias noticed something troubling. The elders were now actively searching, moving more systematically, questioning workers and checking passenger lists. Their presence was a reminder that time was limited. "They are getting closer," Leary whispered, her grip on the spinwheel tight. Elias nodded. "That's why we need a plan for when they reach the storage area. You are clever, Leary. You will follow instructions and think ahead." If they arrive, stay calm. Use what you've learned. The elders arrived sooner than expected. Two of them appeared near the entrance of the storage facility, scanning the area carefully. Leary froze, but Elias gently guided her behind a stack of crates. Mina crouched beside her, whispering encouragement. Elias stepped forward slightly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. The elders paused, their eyes narrowing. Elias spoke carefully, using words they could understand. I am a human, traveler, and protector of this child. She is with me for safety. She is not breaking any rules intentionally. The elders communicated silently among themselves, their posture tense. Elias continued, speaking slowly and clearly, demonstrating respect for their culture. She is learning to follow your rules. She respects your traditions, but she is young, fragile, and cannot survive if not cared for. I ask for your understanding. The tension was palpable. Leary peeked from behind the crates, her eyes wide. The elders considered Elias' words, their gaze shifting between the humans and the small alien girl. Elias remained calm, showing patience, respect, and empathy, qualities that transcended species and communicated humanity's strength. Finally, one elder stepped forward, speaking in a slow, measured tone. Your words are unusual, but your care is evident. The child has followed instructions partially, and you have protected her. Elias nodded. Yes. I want her to learn to respect your rules, but also to survive. Humans believe in compassion, guidance, and clever solutions. That is what I offer. The elder regarded him silently, then spoke again. We will observe. She may remain under guidance, but she must continue to follow the rules. Any deliberate disobedience will be noted. Leary let out a small, relieved sigh, her tension easing slightly. Elias gave her a reassuring smile. Humanity's ability to negotiate, to think creatively, and to show empathy had worked. He had protected her without breaking her culture's rules. The elders left, continuing their search elsewhere. Elias guided Leary and Mina back into the storage facility. Leary sat down, spinning her toy in her hands, her face bright with a mixture of relief and newfound confidence. You helped me, she whispered. You humans are clever. Elias smiled. Thank you, Leary, but you were clever too. You observed, stayed calm, and followed instructions. That is courage and that is strength. Mina nodded, smiling. See, we make a great team. Leary looked at the two humans and finally smiled fully, a small, genuine smile that reflected trust and gratitude. She had learned something new today. Bravery could come from intelligence, patience, and careful observation. Strength was not only about rules or force, it was also about care, empathy, and thinking ahead. The day ended quietly. Elias, Mina, and Leary prepared for the night, securing the storage area and planning for the future. Leary ate a small, safe meal, resting comfortably for the first time without fear. She began to understand the value of humanity, not just as a species, but as an example of courage, empathy, and clever problem-solving. Elias watched her, his heart swelling with pride. Humanity had a way of touching lives, bridging cultures, and finding solutions in difficult circumstances. Leary had experienced that firsthand. As night fell over Nova Haven, the trio settled in, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for now, they were safe, they were together, and Leary had begun to discover her own strength. Humanity had shown her the power of care, intelligence, and courage, and she, in turn, had begun to embrace those lessons, preparing herself for the journey ahead. In the quiet of the hidden storage area, Elias whispered to himself, "We are ready. We will face whatever comes next. Together, we will protect her and she will learn to thrive." For Leary, it was a night of peace, reflection, and growth. For Elias and Mina, it was a reminder that the strength of humanity lay not in power, but in compassion, ingenuity, and the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. And as the stars twinkled outside the spaceport, Elias knew one thing with certainty. The real journey was only beginning, and together, They could face anything the galaxy had in store. The sun rose slowly over Nova Haven, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink. The spaceport was already alive with activity, cargo ships taking off, traders calling out their offers, and travelers hurrying to their destinations. Elias, Mina, and Leary had spent another quiet night in the hidden storage area, but today felt different. Today was the day that Leary would face the Elders again, and Elias knew it. The challenge would not be easy, but he was ready. Humanity's strength, he reminded himself, came from courage, empathy, and intelligence, and he intended to use all three. Leary stirred first, blinking her large, luminous eyes. She looked around the small room and saw Elias and Mina awake, preparing a small breakfast of safe foods. For the first time, she felt a sense of calm, not total safety, but readiness. Elias had taught her to observe, to plan, and to trust. She had begun to understand what it meant to be strong. "Good morning, Leary," Elias said softly. "Today we may meet the Elders. You are ready. Remember what we practiced. Stay calm, observe, and think before you act." Leary nodded. I will try," she said quietly, gripping the small spinwheel toy. Mina smiled at her. "You don't just try, Leary. You already learned so much. We're a team and we'll face this together." Elias led them out of the storage area carefully, sticking to the quiet corridors. The spaceport felt different in the morning light. The noise and motion seemed sharper, more chaotic, yet Elias moved with calm confidence. Leary followed closely, using everything Elias had taught her. She noticed the subtle signs, the way workers glanced around, the patterns of foot traffic, and the timing of the Elders' patrols. She had learned to observe, to think, and to act strategically. As they approached a less crowded section of the spaceport, Elias signaled them to pause. "They are near," he whispered. "We need to stay hidden until we understand their movement. Watch carefully." Leary crouched slightly, her heart beating faster. She held the small binocular-like device Elias had given her and scanned the corridor. Sure enough, two of the Elders appeared, moving deliberately and scanning the area. Elias' eyes met Leary's, and he gave her a reassuring nod. "You are ready," he whispered. "Remember, observe first, then move. Stay calm." Leary's fingers tightened around the device. She had never faced such danger before, yet she felt strangely confident. Elias' guidance had taught her that courage was not the absence of fear, it was acting wisely despite it. The Elders moved closer, their gaze sweeping the corridor. Leary ducked behind a support pillar, remaining silent. Elias moved beside her, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Mina crouched next to them, whispering, "You're doing great, Leary. Keep watching." The Elders paused, their eyes narrowing as they scanned the area. Elias held his breath, trusting in the plan they had rehearsed. Leary noticed a small gap in the crowd, an opening that would allow them to move unnoticed. She pointed it out to Elias, her voice barely audible. "There," she whispered, "we can move through that space." Elias smiled, impressed. "Good observation. That's exactly what we need." They moved carefully, stepping into the gap and advancing slowly. Leary's movements were precise, her senses sharp. She had learned to anticipate the Elders' behavior, to read patterns, and to act calmly under pressure. Humanity's ingenuity had guided her, and now she was using it herself. Suddenly, one of the Elders turned sharply, scanning the corridor where they had just been. Leary froze, her heart racing. Elias held his hand up, signaling her to stay still. The Elders' gaze swept past them, and they held their breath as he continued down the corridor, unaware of the small group hiding behind the crates. "See," Elias whispered once the Elder passed. "Patience and observation work, you did everything right." Leary exhaled slowly, a small smile appearing. I understand better now," she said. "I can see patterns." Mina beamed. "I knew you could do it. You're amazing, Leary." They continued moving carefully, following Elias' guidance and Leary's observations. The spaceport's activity provided cover, and they used every opportunity to stay unnoticed. Eventually, they reached a quiet platform near a cargo loading area where Elias had arranged for a temporary safe space. "This is it," Elias said. "Safe for now. You can rest, eat, and prepare. The elders will not find us here easily." Leary looked around, her large eyes shining with relief. "Safe, really?" "Yes," Elias said. "And more importantly, you're learning. You are brave, clever, and strong. Today proves that." They settled into the small corner, and Elias provided another small meal for Leary. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. For the first time, she realized that being brave did not always mean fighting. It could mean observing, thinking, and acting wisely. As they rested, Elias began speaking quietly, explaining the importance of diplomacy and reasoning. Sometimes rules are strict and people judge quickly, but if you show respect, patience, and intelligence, you can guide them to understanding. That is one of humanity's greatest strengths. Leary listened intently, absorbing every word. She had begun to see a new way of life, not one dictated solely by fear of punishment, but guided by understanding, cleverness, and care. Humanity's example was teaching her that strength could come from kindness and strategy, not just rules. Later in the morning, the elders returned, this time with more determination. Elias had anticipated their approach and had prepared. He stepped forward calmly, his voice steady. "I am Elias Ryder, a human traveler. Leary is with me for safety. She respects your rules, and I assure you she is learning. Please allow her to continue under my guidance." The elders communicated among themselves, their posture tense. Leary remained quiet, her small body tense but her mind focused. She had learned to stay calm, to follow instructions, and to observe carefully. Her eyes reflected determination, courage, and intelligence. Finally, one elder stepped forward, speaking slowly. "We observe your care and guidance. The child is learning. She respects the rules. We will allow this arrangement temporarily, but she must continue to follow instructions. Any deliberate disobedience will be noted." Leary exhaled softly, relief washing over her. Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "See, your courage and intelligence worked. You stayed calm, observed carefully, and used your skills. That is strength." Mina hugged Leary, whispering, "We did it together. You're safe now." For the next few hours, Elias and the children moved carefully, practicing strategies and reinforcing lessons. Leary's confidence grew with each successful observation and safe movement. She had learned to anticipate behavior, to act thoughtfully, and to remain calm under pressure. Humanity's influence had shaped her thinking, giving her tools to navigate a challenging world. As evening approached, Elias led them back to the storage facility. Leary ate a small meal, resting comfortably. She looked around at Elias and Mina, a smile lighting up her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You humans are clever and kind." Elias smiled. "And you, Leary, are clever and strong. You learned quickly, observed carefully, and stayed brave. That is what matters. You are ready for more challenges now." Mina nodded. "See, we make a great team. Humans and aliens can work together perfectly." The night fell over Nova Haven, and the spaceport grew quiet. Elias watched the stars outside the window, reflecting on the journey so far. Humanity's strength had been clear, not just in survival or technology, but in kindness, patience, and the ability to think creatively. Leary had learned these lessons firsthand. In the quiet of the storage facility, Leary drifted to sleep, dreaming of safety, friendship, and the lessons she had learned. Elias and Mina watched over her, knowing that she was ready to face the galaxy with courage, intelligence, and the strength of trust. Elias whispered softly to himself, "We face the challenge with care, patience, and clever thinking." Humanity's true power lies in compassion and guidance. Leary is proof of that. For Leary, this was the beginning of a new life. She had learned that bravery could come from observation, strategy, and trust. She had discovered kindness and ingenuity beyond her own culture's rules. Humanity had shown her that strength was not just about following orders, but about thinking, caring, and acting wisely. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but for the first time, Leary felt ready. Elias and Mina had shown her that even in a world of strict rules and uncertainty, courage, intelligence, and empathy could guide her safely. As the stars twinkled over Nova Haven, Elias knew that their journey was only beginning. But he was confident in one thing. Together, humans and aliens could face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and discover the strength within themselves. And for Leary, that strength had already begun to shine.